So, training vlog, the maintenance stuff, the 20th of April 2021. Just did some boxing practice with a friend, and for an hour and a half, couple hours, and now I'll just pick up on some lower body strength maintenance, because I got all the stuff here. Why not? This is kind of normally how I practice. A lot of my practice is affected by the spaces that I'm in, so it makes sense if I'm in a gym right now that I can get some lower body practice in. It's just going to consist of some front-loaded, back-foot elevated split squats. I like this at the moment because a few months ago I had a lot of tension in my lower back, which wasn't so great with standard squats and things like deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts. And I find the front-loaded split squat helps me stay more upright in the position. And then in that case, I will then superset it with some heavy dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. I actually prefer the dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. I find the line of action nicer when I'm being mindful of something that's in my back that it's been irritated, but I still want to keep some load in there. I'm also going to do some heavy step ups as well, because this helps me keep nice and upright at the same time. And also because I'm doing a lot of kind of plyometric work with a lot of outdoor exploration and jumping on things. It's a very common movement, like stepping up and pushing off it, so it would be good to develop strength or maintain strength there. And then after that I'll do some what I consider prehabilitative work, which for me is like shrimp squats, Harop curls, maybe some deep sissy squats if I need that at the end or if I have time. I may also combine it with some shoulder prehab, because I've just finished boxing and I normally tie that in with it too. So yeah, that's what's on the menu for today. So yeah, the dumbbells down here are just quite light. They only got to 30s, but that's fine for now. I'm going to superset this front-loaded split squats. Just in the warm-up there, just focusing on my patterning and just kind of patterning how deep I'll be going, how it's basically feeling. I like to work normally with a tempo of like 3-2-1-1. Basically means like going down for 3 seconds, no, 2-3-1-1. Down for 2 seconds, hold for 3 seconds in the bottom, up 1, and then 1 in the top position for my front-loaded split squat. And then likewise for the dumbbells, because they're quite light as well, I'll be working with an eccentric tempo of 4-2-1-1. So down for 4, hold 2 in the bottom, up 1, and then 1 again. Case if you get the wobbles a bit in the split squat, the front foot you can angle just inward slightly, just inward, and it can help. I was focusing more on getting a light feather touch of the back knee to the floor while staying as extended as possible. Every rep has its own context. It doesn't exactly pan out like that. For the next set I'll probably just do straight reps. Just a quick pause now while I'm talking, and straight into the Romanian deadlifts with the dumbbells. Just threw the extra rep in there for 6, just because normally it'd be nice if it was around 45 kilos, 50 kilos. If I wasn't doing it with the tempo, I would increase the weight. But just working through full range at the moment. making the most of the tools. If I did 5 or 6 then with the Romanian deadlift. Again, just to reiterate, I'm using the dumbbells and not the bar because the patterning for me feels more ergonomic. The hand position, keeping the weight centered, and just because previous issues of tension building up in the lower spine and some impingement kind of only really occurred when I was working front squats and normal Romanian deadlifts with a bar. I know the mechanics should be near enough the same, but it's not, because it's a different modality. You're working with dumbbells. It's more free moving. But yeah, a nice superset for this would be then working with Romanian deadlifts with the bar. So of course, if you're really working for a lot higher intensity, then you might not want to superset these two things. You might want to split them up. But for me, just maintenance stuff. Nothing wrong, superset, gets it in quickly, working front back, so to speak, push pull, so to speak. Nice combination. Yeah, it's enough. I do these 2 heavy work sets. The weight is a lot less than what I was doing perhaps 1 year ago, 2 years ago. Haven't been spending so much time with weights with COVID, not having access to heavy weights basically. But during that time, the strength that I did build, I was able to transfer into other projects, more plyometric projects and things like this. So whilst with a classical type of strength conditioning programming, you might work through phases of strength and then plyometrics and things like this. For me, I just add another practice. So I'll just start doing more jumping work, start working on precision jump, start working on more vertical or broad jump, things like this. And that essentially is my phase for this type of practice. And having just to coordinate and manage the other practice in regards to that. So for example, if I was purely working strength and building this up, I'll probably do this session maybe up to 3 times a week, like twice a week, and then pairing with some other stuff for upper body, and repeat that through the week to develop strength. At the moment, it's just maintenance. So whereas normally I put maybe 20, 25 on each side, and maybe even work for a tempo with that. Today, there's only 80 kilos in the bar, and it feels it's enough. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. Always changing, and it will again in the future. I actually feel quite recovered now, so I'm going to go in for a fourth set. Yeah, nice getting that last set in. Last rep on the left side for the split squat. Ooh. I lost my my patterning, my groove a bit. And then, as you can see, just switched it up a little bit with a little extra bit of range with some slight deficit. It'd normally be nicer just on a step, because you can bring the dumbbells either side. Had a little bit of trouble there with the plate, but it was just behind me. I thought, okay, stretch it out a little bit. So these sessions are quite dynamic. I mean, in terms of, it's not fix. I know kind of what I'm going to do, but I don't know the exact weights, I don't know the exact tempos. Depends how I feel. My practice is not a strength practice, right? I just do this stuff to maintain certain things. And with regards to what I said before about lifting heavier weights at some point in time or another, yeah, this will play on your mind if your weight goes down, if you're focused on a strength practice, and if you're judging yourself by numbers. I try not to judge myself by numbers. Did this for many, many years. And if you're looking towards a more generalized movement practice, it's always about the quality, not the quantity. And I don't mean quality as in like how good are the reps. I mean the quality of what is the substance of your practice, rather than and judging it, by the content of your practice, your experience of the practice. It feels heavy. That's enough. My nervous system is not as in tune with maximum intensity as it was before. If I did this a couple times a week, or maybe 3 times a week for the next 3 months, well, the weight would go straight up again. I know this, so it doesn't plague on my mind. Do what you know is right now in this moment, rather than trying to work towards an idea of something. This stays in mind, of course you want to go somewhere, but it doesn't help you in that moment. You can't change anything in that moment. All you can do is the work at that point, at that time, and have it follow an overarching plan, but at the same time take into account that for all the various factors of life and training and practice, it will change, it should change. If it doesn't change, you're not moving. A favourite of mine, step ups, superset, with Jefferson curls.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I and I's in the place. Here to do our thing, you know what I'm saying? Step up time. Time to claim something that's real out here, you know what I'm saying? Something that you can live for, you know what I'm saying? Your seeds, you know what I'm saying? Time to build, time to step up, yo.
I stay at the center of news, a gossip and interview.
You can't lose, G.
Overstand the rules, see the style can get ruled when you witness the guard.
You notice with the step up, the first steps are a bit slower. It's just for patterning, so that I'm not dropping up or kind of jumping, so dropping down or jumping up. It's just for me important to get the groove, so I need to slightly lean more forward so I can properly load the leg, so I can get a clean push up. And likewise, there's a slight lean forward, more of a hinge as I come back down, and this kind of needs to be managed in a kind of forward pattern. It's not just kind of stepping up, stepping down. If you're just stepping up, stepping down, yeah, you're developing some things, but important is also the patterning, because ultimately I use this pattern for jumping. I'm going to run and jump off something, so patterning it at the same time.
Plus attract a lot. Yeah, I'm hot like what? Up in your face with the product. No hesitation in the world of frustration, cause I'm facing a grown man sports situation.
Each time we hit the studio, we lay down laws with no pause. We already belittle the flaws, share perfection like the ultimate driving machine. We stand lean and always literate what we mean. Brothers don't be overstanding the plans that we be having. Crushing all these clowns cause it's all about the mic grabbing. I'm from the land where the righteous and the rude rest. The Vernonville, we're living life, it be the true test.
Step up time, step up.
Yeah.
Step up
Cause it's step up time.
Yeah. Step up time, step up, yo. Step up time, yeah. Step.
Yeah. I thought the bar was a lighter bar. I thought it was the 15k bar, but not the 20. I like to do this for, to prepare for my Jefferson curls. The 10-10-30, 10 reps. Each rep, hold the bottom for 10 seconds, the last rep, hold for 30 seconds. So you've got a total of 90 seconds, a minute and a half under tension for that one set. I use this for conditioning normally. If I program people, I'll build them up to this over a period of, depends on the person, but minimum 3 months, maybe even 6 months or more, until that becomes something that's achievable. And then we start loading it. I don't see the need of loading Jefferson curls up to body weight and stuff as a goal in the beginning. I don't use it for that. I use it for a conditioning tool and also for accustoming the tendons to load in this stretch position for many different things. I'm going to jump back on my set of step-ups, add a little bit of weight, because I did 6-6 before, but I really only want to do 5-5 each side.
The first sparks of the flame. The guards warned me that it's not a game, so it's he, so proceed. The first seed was dropped when I came to rock the spot.
What?
I caught the props when I flocked to the hot jams at the city. The shorties look pretty, wanna join my committee of rude boy rebels, underground like the devil. But I never praise, just maintain eyes dazed from smoke. And thoughts about the stage is getting smoked. Concentration on going for broke. You know you can't cope with the roster with the fire in his eyes. Yo, there ain't no surprise, I keep it live.
Still feeling okay on that, so I did the extra rep, 6 each side. I wouldn't do anything higher. It's not what I'm aiming for at the moment with maintenance of strength. I'm not hypertrophying. And actually I noticed that having my foot a tiny bit closer to the edge, the pattern was nicer rather than having my foot further forward on the top. And I don't normally feel so many discrepancies between my left and right. But in this position on those last reps, I feel the right was missing some information in there, which is always really exciting. It's like, cool, this is something I can focus on. So stick a bit more weight on for the Jefferson curls, and maybe do a couple more sets.
Get a harvest if you don't sow seeds. Ill gain wealth brings stress from dirty deeds. The choices that you make will fulfill your needs, but the shit you go through will be hard to believe.
Yo, the shit's ridiculous, and I should know by now. Still, this particular flow gets me over somehow. From selling krills in the streets to making fat beats. You fucking with cheats to make your ends meet. The wrong move spells defeat, so wisdom is shown. The things I see versus the knowledge that's known.
Peace,
I won't apologize for seeds I've sown. It's step up time, you on your own.
So step up time, step up, step up time, yeah. Step up time, step up time, come on. Step up time, step up.
So yeah, popped 30 on the bar now, and then I reduced the reps, 8 reps and only 5-second holds. No last second 30, no last rep hold for longer. So of course, are we changing the variables? Not just the same thing for more. No, different contexts. I have less time under tension here, but the weight is heavier. So it takes care of experience with different regions of the Jefferson curl. So for example, if you can do body weight Jefferson curl for 1-2 reps, and yet your conditioning in that context is not there, that's a gap. It's not just about linear development. Yeah, gonna do one more set of both, and I'll put a bit more weight on the Jefferson curl at the end, and I'm just gonna do 5 straight reps, maybe with 40 or something.
Step up time, step up, kid. Step up time, yeah. And we out, I flavor beast. Rap lover, Rob O. Ross, Marco Polo, I. Rap lover on the beat. Sure sound complete. And my name is Pete.
That was a nice weight with the step up, more like it. 50 kilos, and reps are still somewhat controlled, and it takes me to 85%, which is basically means at least 1 rep left in the tank. I don't go more than that anymore. So generally everything I'm working at around 85% maximum intensity. I'm going to stick a bit more weight on the Jefferson curls. For the Jefferson curls, because they come down quite low, I prefer to use these small 5 kilo weights, because then, yeah, we can go deeper.
And we out till next week. Peace.
And that's it for the weighted context, done. I'll now do some Harop curls, superset with some shrimp squats, as I mentioned earlier, for some prehab stuff. hopefully I can record the end because there's a class coming here in a minute. So yeah, I'll get on that now. So you'll note I did just a progression holding one hand. It's easier so I can focus on patterning before I maybe go to the double hand progression, maybe it up. But more reps with 6 each side. Normally I work with 5 for toward maximal intensity. And one thing to note is that you start in the bottom position with a shrimp squat. Start in the bottom position with a shrimp squat. So many times. It's a starting strength tool, just like a deadlift, which for me basically means that you have to be very aware of having your structure locked in before you actually start. So it teaches you a lot about structure and developing strength from almost like a deficit position, because you're already in the bottom position, pushing out of it. Likewise, control all the way to the bottom. It's just a really light touch of the knee to the floor. If you're dropping to the floor, it's essentially missing information, missing patterning. Just the same, it's very similar pattern with the step up, actually. This kind of leaning forward, counterbalancing in order to get the most efficient push. And that's what we're looking for here, is efficiency, without disrupting the frame, and without disrespecting the context, without breaking and huge compensations. But there is an aspect of efficiency, which is what I'm focusing on as well. Woo! Harop, baby. 5 reps, control tempo, chest to floor. Good enough. On that last rep. The left side, interesting enough, or the left side was stronger in the step up. The patterning isn't as good as here. Something a bit funny in the left hip, but it's one of those come and go things. Also note that on that last rep on the left side, you'll see how the leg here, I was holding it here, it shifted forward. This is an undesirable compensation. If this is happening on every rep, that you're really closing out to have to come up, just do the lesser progression and build up the strength. Because ultimately, again, as with like the weight, it's not about the progression, it's about how does the quality of the experience feel at this moment. So with focus on that, yeah, this is just doable for one more set. So I jump back on the Harop curl, jump back here, jump back on the Harop curl, and then we're done for the strength work. Also just to note that it's almost 12 o'clock. I haven't eaten yet. Again, just had some MCT oils, some full cream, and I've got my amino acids as well with some electrolytes and things in there. So yeah, I feel absolutely fine. This is normally how I practice, and I like to practice intensity work. I've already done boxing training, did that at 9 for a couple of hours, 9 to 11, then 11 to 12, do some of this, and then I'll go and have my lunch, which I fucking earn. Woo! Yeah, I put the shoes on, I can grip nicer, it fits better underneath. And yeah, this is always advisable. Harop curls, get a good strong foot grip, then you can really express the strength. So the first few reps, my progression was a little bit more advanced. I was a little bit more open in the knees, and I tried to hold open that open angle of the knees as long as possible, and also the open angle of the hip as opposed to hinging in the hip. The last few reps, had to regress slightly, but that's the beauty of this movement. The mechanical advantage is so easy, you control it yourself. The last set, the full progression escaped me. I dropped to the one hand progression and added the extra rep. One thing to note with the shrimp squat is you should be able to see it, I'm more deliberately shifting the weight into the ball of the foot as opposed to being flat through the foot. And this for me loads more the knee or the VMO and develops the stability of the knee more. As opposed to, for example, I've already been doing split squats and I did the step ups, which are all working with a flat footed push in a very, very similar plane of motion, but not really shifting a lot of the weight very, very far forward. And this is why I see this movement as a prehabilitation movement. The last set of the Harop curls done. Harop curls fitting nice today. Something I did a long time ago and stopped doing for a while, brought back again. It's very interesting how it develops. Yeah, very valuable tool. Yes, that's pretty much me for a standard maintenance leg session. I'll do a little bit of basic mobility work now, some stretching and things like this. Mostly emptying and shaking out. Nothing too much to add, it's pretty well rounded. And yeah, later this evening I have time to go out and practice again. So always good to get your sessions in early. Also just to note that, so that session just took exactly an hour, which was pretty cool. And I got my 4 sets of front-loaded rear-foot elevated split squats in, superset with dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. Got 4 sets of that in. Got 3 sets of the step-ups superset with the Jefferson curls. And then I got 3 sets of the shrimp squat progression superset with the Harop curl. Nice. So I'm actually filming this quite a few months after the lower body session that was recorded previously, and the reason is I would also like to show you some of the preparation movements, very, very simple, that I would normally do when going for a fundamental strength intensity lower body practice session. They were missed out last time because I had done a boxing session before and I was quite prepared to go straight into my lower body session. So today I can just show you just a handful of the movements I would normally use for essentially preparation. The idea here is both with regards to standard kind of quote-unquote warm-up procedures of getting blood flow moving, but also with regards to stimulating some of the major muscle groups that I'll be using, of course, throughout the practice, notably engaging and priming, so to speak, the posterior chain. One of the things I'll also be working with is this kind of reciprocal inhibition approach. So this idea of reciprocal inhibition, in that by releasing some tension in certain muscle groups, it can then help increase the activation of an opposing muscle group. So for example, you'll see me using some techniques for contract relax for helping release any excessive tone in the hip flexor region, for example, and then that will be followed by some not contract relax, but some isometric holds for repetitions for the essentially the glutes and the hamstrings as well. Also playing its part as a stability movement too. The three movements that I'll be using, first of all, I'll be using a tool that I call a kneeling hip flexor release. You'll see that I'll be using a contract relax method by pulling the back knee or the back leg or back foot into the ground, holding that for certain moments. And then normally about 5 seconds, 6 times 5 second holds each side, so an accumulation of around 30 seconds, just to make sure I'm getting the maximal range out of the hip flexors on each side. And then from there, I'll flip myself over, and I'll either do a bilateral or a unilateral, what I call a shoulder bridge, but it's probably a glute bridge as well. It's a bit interesting sharing this movement because it is one that Charles Poliquin would have said is kind of a waste of time, as well with, for example, hip thrusters. But the idea here is not that I'm trying to simulate a type of movement. I'm simply trying to get some neural drive going into the posterior train so that I can have that sensation of a maximal contraction, which will then become very useful when I start moving on to back squatting, which I'm going to do today as well. From there, I'm also going to do just some really fundamental calf work. The calf work, again, is with regards to neural priming of plantar flexion. One of the perspectives, again, from Poliquin that he shared was this idea that plantar flexion is an expression of pressing. So, for example, if you were going to push a box along the floor or you were going to push a car, you would plantar flex, and plantar flexion is that expression of pushing with the lower body. So I use this technique as well, but also at the same time it's a chance just to get some calf work in for the purposes of prehabilitation and also some mobility development as well. I'll actually be working with one of my calves, my left leg, with some more eccentrics, as I have been picking up a bit of just kind of glued up Achilles heel and also in the left calf as well for the past few months. And I'm just monitoring that, and the eccentrics really do help give some kind of relief for those tensions that I do experience sometimes. Other than that, many of these movements can be performed bilaterally or unilaterally. For example, the glute bridge or the shoulder bridge, as I would call it, this can be performed unilaterally and also bilaterally. It can also be performed elevated or on the floor and with different knee angles. This is something that you can explore yourself, but something that I do prescribe specifically for people who work with me. And also with regards to, of course, the calf raises, you can work with a huge variety of tempos. You can work with a huge variety of directions of the foot. I'm going to keep it quite simple today and probably just accumulate around up to 1 minute of eccentrics on the calf side that has been complaining a little bit in the past few months, and then probably just work just from unilateral normal raises on the other side. One last thing to note that I will point out at the end of the calf raises, note that I finish each one with a plantar flexed contraction. Again, this was promoted by Poliquin as helping maintain that neural intention of pushing, which will become then very useful when working through onto the back squats. Now, whether you believe this or not is regardless, because in many cases when people have successfully trained many other people, and perhaps more gold medalists than anyone else in the world, you don't necessarily need to see any scientific evidence. You can kind of just shut up and follow someone's advice. So that's what I like to do.
highlight a few details here. This is performed in quite a specific way. One of the main things that I'm thinking about with regards to the form and the structure is, of course, that I can maintain this plank-like bridge form. So there's a lot happening internally, and because I'm working with a unilateral context, there's an innate anti-rotational effort that has to be there throughout. So the hip, for example, the pelvis, doesn't drop downward sideways. So this is continually being fought against in this unilateral context. It's not there with the bilateral. So I would, if you haven't used this movement before, stick with the bilateral first of all to build, first of all, the foundation, and then from that start working with this anti-rotational context. And one thing to note as well is that I'm coming up high onto the shoulders, hence why I call it a shoulder bridge. What you'll see very often when people are just doing a glute bridge is they're kind of focusing on just contracting the glutes. There's a lot more to this movement. So for example, by bringing myself right up onto the shoulders, I'm providing the maximal load for this context for the posterior chain, namely thinking about the glutes and the hamstrings. Now, in order to get the most out of that, there are a few things that are happening when I'm doing the contraction. There's two possibilities that can work in tandem whilst you're doing this movement. The pulling of the heel downwards, or even pressing of the heel, it can be translated into that, downwards into the boxes, creating a contraction. And those are the two things you can work with. This idea of pushing the heel down as you help elevate yourself up, and then also pulling the heel, where you're also getting a stimulus to the back of the knee as well. So these are quite important things. Yeah, one thing to note with this movement here is that I was working with a bent knee, a locked bent knee in slight flexion. What I found is that this really helps to, it's a prehabilitative aspect for the knee as well, holding it in this locked position. So it's really kind of getting that extra bit in as well. I'll mix it up now and then. I'll go straight leg and I'll go slightly bent knee. And note as well, at the end I had that little isometric hold in plantar flexion. I think I forgot it on the left side, so I brought it back again. The left side I did 6 repetitions of 10-second eccentrics, accumulating 60 seconds of time under eccentric. And then for the other side I just worked with 10 reps straight. And I'm just going to do this sequence just a couple times, maximum 3 times, and that'll be me prepped and ready to hit some back squats. Yeah, but as standard, as I said, today I haven't done anything before, so I'm going straight into my lower body practice. So I will do some kind of prepping and priming before. Mostly it will be related around beginning with like hip circles and hip rotations to check the lumbar spine, to release any unnecessary tension in the lumbar spine, because I'm going to be putting a lot of load on my back and there's going to be a lot of tension brought back in there as well. I also work with just some basic proofing of the knees and ankles and things like that very, very quickly. Of course, in my other session, I didn't start on back squats. I did some other stuff, but here is essentially what I would do in any case for any type of lower body intensity practice with regards to priming, preparation, things beforehand. Yeah, so that was really, really quick. That was like 3-4 minutes, less than that. One of the main perspectives of this is, as I said, searching for and releasing, or trying to empty any unwanted tension that is there in the hips, in the glutes, in the lower back, in the spine, etc., etc.
I work with pelvic rotations in different planes, sagittal, frontal, and also going through transverse, kind of circular. Of course, proofing of the knees, ankles very, very quickly. Because this is a really useful perspective that I gained from one of my teachers, is that if you have unwanted tension and then you pile tension on top of that, it's not always going to lead to good stuff. It's just going to exacerbate those certain areas of tension that perhaps you can just at least be aware of and perhaps kind of empty slightly before you start with things like weighted movements. I also will note that if you do have restrictions in the squat, yes, I would advise you to go through quite a standardized hip mobility routine that pertains to the squatting positions that you're going to use if you are doing something like back squats, front squats, etc. That can also be found in the Open Resources playlist as well. If not, you can get it from the free fundamental prehab program in any case. So I would say that if this is you, if you know you need to work on that hip mobility as well, I don't. I would work with this kind of searching, checking, proofing beforehand. Then go and do your squat mobility routine. If you're restricted in the calves, one nice thing to do is to just do a bit of just really fundamental calf stretching beforehand, because then it will help you in your squat position so you can perform the squat routine effectively. I often program it like this, doing the calf work beforehand to release some, to give up the range that is available. And then from that, going into some of the movements that I just presented, which are kind of, a friend termed them activation movements. So you can call them activation movements. And from there, yeah, go in and do your stuff.